we're live with episode 5 of the Post Plan podcast. Hello, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing good, Kenny. How about you?
I'm doing good as well. And we made it to episode 5. Running gag here. We're making it. We're surviving. So today's episode is a little bit special. It's gonna be our first sort of episode breaking down the new season. The new season releases tomorrow. For those who were wondering, well, when this goes live, it will be today, technically. But so we're talking the day before the new season releases. Are we excited?
Yeah, patch day. It's always a good time.
So, Greg, when does the new season drop again?
Tuesday.
When does it drop? What time does it drop?
I don't know the time. It's always on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Dude,
that's what I always roll with.
So many people
for
coming into
chat.
Twitch chat. Isn't it supposed to be today? The battle pass ended today. Isn't the new season? Come on.
Everyone wants to. It's like I'm not Ubisoft support.
Yeah.
And even if I knew, I'd.
You're John Ubisoft. You should know.
I wish.
Nah,
it's like that's the most common question all the time.
So
it's always on a Tuesday, isn't it? I can't think the last time it was never on a Tuesday.
I think at some point we had it on a Thursday. But I think it got delayed. Like, it was initially supposed to be Tuesday, and then Ubisoft was like, yo, we needed another day, and then they delayed it to a Thursday. They just like the tea. Yeah.
Ubisoft's a creature of habit.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things drop on Tuesdays, right? I feel like.
I don't know. Is that like a gaming thing?
I think so. Anyways.
Well, I heard it here first.
Tuesdays. Always drops on Tuesdays. Always. But anyways, so today we thought that we would sort of break down initial impressions. We kind of speculated last episode about what we thought people would talk about, and I'd say we kind of nailed that. Shotguns.
I'd say so too.
RAM compared to Sledge and Buck, and also Quick Match 2.0. But anyways, let's jump into it. I guess we could start with our first impressions now that we played it on test server and stuff. Take it away.
Quick Match 2.0.
Anything you want to talk about?
Anything? Season? Okay. Well, I feel like I've beat Quick Match 2.0 to death.
Good.
I don't really.
Again. Make sure it stays.
Yeah, I know.
Dead.
I don't get the point. I don't think it's a good learning tool. I think it develops bad habits. I've seen some mock-ups on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter or X.com, about like hologram systems where you could like go up and have like suggested reinforcements. I like the idea in concept, and then the more I thought about it, I still don't really know how I feel about it.
I feel like that in particular, I know exactly. Like my friend Schwartz is the one who made that mock-up. The thing is, I like that, but I only like it because it is better than Ubisoft's alternative. Preferably, I feel like the game should never really like tell you what to do, and figuring out it, especially like through dying, like every death is a lesson. Like that's how it's supposed to be, and it's like so like it's the thing that the entire game's been built upon, and it's like, I don't know.
I think the game should just teach you some fundamentals about site setup. Like this is a foot level hole. This is a head level hole. This is why you want to place a reinforcement typically. This is what a reinforcement does. This is a crouch rotate. This is a vault rotate. And then just like done. And we kind of end up doing that because we're content creators. I feel like kind of the market there is to explain this very complex game. Because in a lot of ways, there's, we have the new tutorial system that they added, which is really cool.
Yep.
But it is a very complex game, and sometimes there are things that happen at a high level that don't necessarily get noticed at a low level, but they still incorporate fundamentals that you should learn at a low level.
Yes.
So that's the confusing part, is that if you don't set somebody aside and then show them the fundamentals, they're probably not going to get it because they were never told by the time they got to whatever rank they got to, because they could shoot really good.
That was something that I kind of highlighted on, is that it kind of becomes like a training wheel situation where just because like if you don't learn why you should reinforce something, once you get into those other modes, you're probably not going to do it because well, you haven't learned why or even how like you should reinforce something, because the game doesn't tell you that because it did it for you. And it kind of I did the whole analogy with like, you know, parenting. Like if you don't teach a kid how to cook as it grows up and then they move out and stuff, they're not even gonna know how to boil pasta water. Right? Like,
as somebody who has been in a lot of different living arrangements with various young men, I can definitely attest to that. In college, there were some things I saw that just confused the heck out of me. I'll just put it that way.
We're Ubisoft, and
like
cooking is quick match 2.0.
I'm just on a side note. My parents made sure that I wasn't a picky eater, and I thank them every day for it, because I see some things. Anyway, side note.
Not gonna again. We're not gonna bash quick match 2.0 too much. However, I wanted to mention one thing that I found quite interesting. So I don't know if you kept an eye on the Siege Twitter itself over the last 2 weeks, or any other official outlet.
My For You page isn't really a lot of gaming stuff. It's a lot of
right. So
stuff that
on Siege's page itself, they've talked a lot about all of the other changes coming in the season. They've had Coconut Bra coming in, sort of breaking down, you know, some ways to use RAM, some ways to use the new fuse rework. They've talked about just in general other changes that are coming, the shotguns, the RAM. There's been one thing that they showed off in the reveal itself that they haven't hyped up for the actual release of the season, which is Quick Match 2.0 itself. So, and I find that really interesting.
Not really a shocker there.
Right? So I feel like there's two options here that I feel like Ubisoft has resorted to.
I feel like it's been pretty unpopular.
Well, yeah, I think generally the community has been fairly against this. Whether you're a pro player who doesn't want new players to learn the wrong way, you know, or content creators like myself that, you know, play this mode for fun all the time, or just casual players that still want to play proper Siege, you've been kind of pissed with this mode. But anyways, going back to it, I find it really interesting that they haven't talked about this, and I feel like it kind of boils down to two options. Either A, Ubisoft has gone in damage control mode regarding it, and they don't want to talk about it publicly because they know that all of the responses will be negative regarding it, but they're still going to go through with it, right? That could be one thing. Like, they're just trying to, like, slide it in, right? Or, option B, they're actually going to roll it back for the release and go back to the drawing board. That's a bit of me coping, but that is the two options that I kind of see Ubisoft thinking about right now. Because I don't think they're
the smart
satisfied.
thing, I think.
Right, for sure. Well, definitely option B. I don't know. Option A would still be kind of shady.
Yeah, no, I think just saying like JK are bad. Like,
yeah.
Because I get the idea. I really do, but it's not the right way to approach the problem. In my opinion,
I got really stuck on the whole thing that they want Siege to be have a quick experience, but that's so antithetical to me, because Siege is not supposed to be a quick game. It's supposed to be a slow game.
And that's why a lot of people are so irritated about the TDM stuff. And just from like a content creation point of view, which we will get into in this video, the TDM isms. One of the things that's, you know, kind of frustrating from a content creation point of view is that I can play the game. I'm pretty much in some cases I'm picking one of two things. I'm either playing to efficiently win the round, or I'm playing to do a cool demonstration of something like Siege mechanically related for a clip. And a lot of the time, if I want to win the round, I have to play the game. I have to play the TDM, like peek everything, swing at 5 million miles an hour, and gun. Like, I don't know if I don't know if this is a good comm. If any comp players can tell me this is a terrible comm to do in ranked, but sometimes I'll just like we'll start like overcomplicating the comms a little bit, and then I'll just say I'm playing ranked. I'll just say I'm playing ranked. Like, stop playing. No planning. Don't like. I'm not gonna like do a pinch here. I'm not.
You no can drone. Go kill.
Like, I'm just go kill. And sometimes it works. It works a fair amount of time. And I finish a round, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I hit a cool clip. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I can't really repurpose this into anything except like I shot a bunch of dudes, which is like cool, but it's not like, it doesn't make for good content in my opinion. And I don't know. So, I mean, obviously some people are into that sort of thing, but it really speaks to like I think this disconnect where people have an idea of what they want from the game and in terms of what is the most efficient. And what's the terminology I'm thinking of? The path of least resistance is a lot of the times to just play your gun. And that's not wrong. That's not incorrect in terms of efficiency. But I don't think that's the way the game should be built. I think a lot of people are on copium in certain instances where I think that they're too quick to blame certain things on TDM meta. Where it's like, dude, I get it. I don't like losing my ones either. You'll hear me whine and moan about it on stream sometimes, a lot of the time. But like at the end of the day, like if you lose a one, you lose a one. There's a difference between losing a one and the game being balanced around just nothing but ones. And I don't think the game should be balanced around ones. So,
but yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Going back to sort of the first impressions, though, we kind of nailed the whole thing that people would heavily discuss: Ram, Buck, and Sledge. I do want to mention we did say that Ram had 4 of the boogies. That was only a test server thing. Coming onto the live server, she's only gonna have 3, which definitely puts her in a better spot, I guess. I was kind of fine with the 4, but whatever. But
I think she was slightly overtuned just a little bit.
Yeah, but it's her season.
I was okay with it. I was okay with her rolling out that way, but I think the lack of can openers and only having 3 boogies.
Yeah. That was one of the balance changes they did. She lost can openers for smokes. That is pretty good. Makes her less of a all in all operator.
Because she was a Swiss Army woman for a second there.
But on the whole,
she could kind of do everything.
Yeah. On the whole topic with Sledge and Buck, I feel like they've really kind of nailed the balance there. Because Buck is...
I agree.
But Buck does his job really well. There are spots on like Clubhouse when you're attacking Basement, where you can go in bar, you can get those angles into Arsenal. He's just better at doing those angles than Ram would be. Obviously, Sledge
I've been
still
playing
has
Buck
nades.
like an entry frag in ranked.
And he has the can opener still, so he can still do both soft and hard breach, which Ram can't. So I think there are decent differentiations for why you would play either. The one operator I kind of compare Ram to now has actually became Gridlock, weirdly enough.
Very similar kind of energy. Yeah, I agree.
Very similar energy. But also the whole
gameplay loop.
The whole she kind of Ram kind of ends up being like a middle ground between Sledge in terms of the vertical that's possible, and Gridlock in terms of the execution, not the flank watch aspect of Gridlock, but the execution aspect of her. Like you have smokes, you have a gadget that makes a shit ton of noise, which you can use for the execute, and like Ram is very good for making those execute plays late round. So, which is really interesting because Gridlock has always fallen in the sidelines, most likely due to her just being a 1-speed. I mean, if she was a 2-speed, she would be insanely OP, I feel like.
Yeah, Gridlock's weird because her gadget is so strong in the post plant.
It's not even post plant. Like just for flank watch, I feel like it could be really good sometimes. Like you can almost guarantee covering every single staircase with tracks, which is like
Nomad
really
is in some ways better for specific situations.
Yeah,
but Grid is also just very good on her own, regardless of her relationship to Nomad.
So for that reason, it's going to be really interesting for me to see how Ram kind of ends up being played, because everyone is always talking about like, oh, she has R4C with a 1.5 or a 2x, and like I'm gonna play the shit out of her. But like at the end of the day,
someone's opening my garage.
It's Gridlock.
It's
but the fact that Ram is a 1-speed is gonna be so interesting, because that's always been like a mental block for all of these players. I feel like that mental block has gotten less over the last couple of seasons.
I agree,
now,
and
but it's still there.
I think that having more speed is still an advantage, but I think the 3 armor rating is not nearly as bad as people say it is.
I think it's a mental thing.
I really think it is placebo, in a lot of cases. And like I can like Zoph, I'm not gonna do frontline entering as much with her just because she's so loud. But she is like characters like Zoph and Sledge are perfect like second entries. Like refrag entry is what I kind of call them, or baiting entry, depending on how you interpret it. She's really good at just getting that like confirm kill on a trade kind of situation, or backing up a teammate, kind of like one out in front and then one in the back. Not as much in terms of like flexibility in terms of rotating. That's the one understated aspects about speed ratings that people kind of ignore, is that the speed rating isn't necessarily what the speed rating is very powerful in terms of positioning for gunfights, but a really, really big benefit is just being able to like adjust your plan more quickly. And so with the 3 armor, that's difficult to do. So it kind of hurts on attack because, you know, you have to rotate in some situations. But for the most part, I think Ram's going to be able to get around that problem just because she brings so much. I mean, the Gadget's great. Her gun is really good. She has a shotgun. She's just a really solid character. I can see myself having a lot of fun playing Ram.
I don't know if you ended up, if you saw it. Did you read the comments on the last podcast? We got the game designer for Ram actually ended up.
Yeah, actually, no, I know who you're talking about. Try,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That was really cool to see, and also him sort of echoing pretty much the same concerns that we had for Ram, which sorry, I don't remember exactly what they were, but I think it was really nice to see that we were kind of on the same page there. Sort of what we were talking about with Ram and such.
I'm glad that Ubisoft isn't afraid to use the test server to try out
that was a really good
that
thing.
might be implemented as like, oh, this is overtuned, don't roll this out. No, like put on the test server, go hard with it. If it's a little bit overtuned, we can adjust. Like I would rather have stuff that is kind of OP and we can tack backwards a little bit once we look at it and go, okay, now we have time to play with it. We can see what it's like, versus the inverse situation where it's like, okay, this stinks. And now, like, because it's a lot more difficult to find out if something that stinks is good now than something good, you know, still being kind of good. Because you already know it's good. You can tack backwards a little bit. Whereas you have like a Grim situation, and now we're like, try, check, and revise every 3 months. Okay, what do we want to do with Grim? Is this good? Is this good? Is this good? I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot more difficult to get to that balance point when you're starting from the bottom. Personally,
now we're here.
Yeah.
Anyways, was there enlighten me? Was there anything else, sort of like first impression wise? I feel like there was one more thing that I really wanted to talk about, but I completely faced out.
Fuse stuff I like.
Yeah.
Character synergy stuff is good. Do more of that.
Oh, shotguns.
Shotguns, yeah. Okay.
We're talking shotguns.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to go first? Because I can
start. So
go ahead.
Obviously, initially, once we had played the test server, I was fairly like with it. Obviously, they felt powerful now, and they felt interesting and stuff to play with. Since then, on the test server, Ubisoft has scaled them back a little bit, but they're still quite good. They did scale them down a little bit. There was some change. I think it was Buck, because Buck could apparently like 2-shot anyone at any range.
Yeah.
And that was kind of nuts. So they had to fix that. But I think they did some changes there. I'm not exactly sure what they did, because I haven't actually followed the notes on this test server that much. But I heard people say
maybe they
trimmed it down a little bit. Maybe
they were like, uh-oh.
Maybe they did.
Uh-oh, Greg's mad.
It's your fault. Anyways, but yeah, so I would say that in general, I'm kind of excited to play around with it, and I think it opens up the world of theory crafting a little bit more, because now you might be able to bring the shotguns on more operators. What I am not happy with is that Solis actually gets a buff. You're gonna see more people run shotgun SMG combo on Solis now, which any buff for Solis is a bad day for me. But
I think I'm with you on Solis now. These last couple of days for the ranked push, because like all the grinders, all the real grinders come out towards the end of the patch, and I'm like, I have a whole plan in my head, and as soon as I see a Solis on the board, I'm like,
oh, you were planning to do an on-off entry on the other side of the map? Too bad. We saw you drone there, so we have 3 people waiting for you to enter there now.
Yeah, and now I can't. so now you're anticipating me going to that side of the building, and now I can't get drones in that side of the building because you're Solis, and I'm just like, this sucks. Like I don't get to play the game.
Yeah,
I don't get to play. Like it's really weird. It's like Solis interfaces with the game in like a really unique way if you're a good player, because if you have that like awareness, then you know, okay, like the smart thing to do here is to just shut down their intel, which is like, spoiler alert,
your
information
intel.
is the only thing. Yeah, like if you're on attack, you need information or you can't do anything.
It becomes a ridiculously hard.
Yeah, it's just like, okay.
And with that said, Solis kind of pushes the whole TDM meta even further, because she kind of forces people into this like face check.
Because you have to face check.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Solis is part of that bigger problem. She encourages you to actually not play supportive and just face check. So another reason why I just absolutely despise her. Yeah.
She also adds like so much mental silent pressure to my teammates and myself, I'm sure, to an extent. But I notice like whenever there's a Solis and it's like, okay, the smart thing to do here is to like clear her as fast as possible, then nobody wants to do it because it's like, oh, it's Solis and I have to like drone. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. We still have to ISO her because she's ISO away from sight. It's like, can we just do a direct hit? No, we can't do a direct hit because we have no info.
Yeah,
we have to go on the other side. Like it's just IGL stuff.
The annoying part about it is it's so hard to describe for new or less experienced players.
Yeah,
why she's so broken, because it's hard to pinpoint the exact moment that she completely fucks you over. Okay, a little bit of a hiccup there. I think Greg just got Dokkaebi called IRL. Or something. You got Logic Bomb.
I got Dokkaebi called by a Texas thunderstorm.
Unlucky. But we were talking Solis, I think. So yeah, but yeah, it's really hard to explain why Solis is so whack, because it's really hard to pinpoint those very moments where she completely like dumpsters you. Because you might not be even aware that it's actually her doing it, because she can also provide all of that intel to her teammates. Like the reason why a person is jumping out on you might be because it's Solis. Right, or just because you have no drones and you might not necessarily know that it's Solis's fault that you don't have a bunch of drones necessarily. It's hard.
It really says a lot about how the game is constructed, doesn't it? It really says that the reasons that IQ isn't quite as good on attack are the reasons that Solis is so good on defense, because the attackers just have so many electronic gizmos that they need to leverage that like strategic advantage of fighting inside a building. Like that's just, that's
also the fact that default cameras aren't like default cameras are static, whereas drones aren't. Like drones can be anywhere, and that what makes Solis so much better as well. Just literally that part of Solis is one of the things that makes her probably the strongest. Is the fact that she can just completely deny your entire intel gathering aspect of attacking, which is such an important thing.
I understood why they gave her a P90, but now I'm sort of like, even then, I don't know. Maybe you should have given her a UMP or something. But that's not going to change the situation.
She's going to play shotgun now, and I play shotgun SMG on her right now, and it's equally as busted. Her gadget is the issue. I feel like I don't mind the P90 personally, as much as I absolutely despise her very existence. It's the gadget. The gadget.
How would you nerf her? Timer on the thing, make it shorter.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I covered this before, but the way I would do it is prep phase cooldown. Like as you spawn in, it starts on a cooldown like a Mario, and lesser range. Like it's 15 meters now, which is kind of insane. So like maybe down to like 11 meters or something. For comparison's
maybe
sake,
10.
Pulse is 9.
Pulse is 9?
Pulse is 9, and she's
I thought it was
15.
10.
It's 9 for some odd reason. Don't ask why.
That's odd. I thought it was 10, 15, 20 like Pulse, Solis, IQ.
Nope. 20, 15, 9.
Weird.
Yep. So I think that kind of covers. I would say in general. I besides Quick Match 2.0 though, I would say people are generally pretty happy with heavy metal, and I would agree.
I agree.
To be honest.
I'm pretty happy with the patch overall.
It's literally like for me, it's just one rotten apple, which is Quick Match 2.0. But besides that, I'm generally happy with the season, personally. So
yeah, I mean, I don't really play Quick Match, so it doesn't really affect me that much. I'm not sure what's going on with like unranked
it's not just that,
versus
though.
standard.
Yeah, I mean,
So
because it's not just that though. It's not just quick match going away. It's also they're literally taking away the option to play unranked, which, to be honest, kind of sucks as well. Like you can't play unranked now. That's not an option. And standard is the weird, horrible love child that nobody wants of both of those modes.
Yeah, that is. Can we talk about that? Because I didn't really comment on it much. I don't. I see what UB is doing by calling it standard. But it's not going to work.
No.
Like, people don't look at it that way. No. Right? You can try to call it like, oh, this is like, what's the analogy I always make? So Halo had difficulty ratings, right? You remember? It had like normal, heroic, and legendary. And they would say like heroic was this was the mode that this is like the canon mode. This is the mode that's like, it's balanced around
the intended experience.
And, and we have a like extreme, a much more difficult, test your skills kind of like, this is an achievement to accomplish legendary difficulty, but you're going to get your ass kicked a lot, just forewarning. And then here with like multiplayer service games, we're starting to find this kind of, okay, we don't really roll out like a single player campaign like we used to on a lot of these titles. So where do you get the premier experience and what do you call it? Well, with Siege, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always say, like, what do most people play? Quick match, right?
So last time I checked, I actually went through for my video researching, talking about quick match 2.0. I did went through and sort of check the data on what people play. So if the stats that I last seen was correct, then I think it was like, I don't know, it's something like 45-ish% played ranked, and then quick match was like 30-ish%, 40-ish%, and then the last in there I assume must have been unranked then. So technically the non-ranked modes outpace the very ranked mode, although you could also count unranked.
But ranked still had a pretty decent plurality.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as someone who mostly plays quick match, I would definitely say that eventually ranked gives you the more intended experience. I do find quick match fun because you can truly fuck around and have a good time. But ranked, I would 100% say is the intended.
So the point I'm trying to make then stands because that was, I ran a poll with my community, and like obviously I do content mainly for like ranked and unranked, which is now going to be standard. But no one's gonna like play standard as the standard. No, like just calling it standard doesn't make it standard. That's a nomenclature thing that I think Ubisoft is trying to push for. I couldn't tell you the reason. I think like it also puts ranked 2.0 in a weird kind of crosshair, a weird kind of set of optics, because let's face it, I think that I personally don't have a lot of issue with ranked 2.0. I know a lot of people do. It's a common talking point. It generates a lot of impressions when in terms of giving your thoughts and opinions on certain kinds of matters pertaining to the Siege community. A lot of people leverage balancing opinions and why the game is played the way it is because of ranked 2.0. It's a hot topic. So to have a mode called standard, and then you have ranked 2.0, which you spent a pretty long time trying to figure out and trying to push forward. You were all in on the ranked 2.0 thing. Like, here's like the new premier, like competitive mode. And then you have standard, which is somewhere in between the sweat level, I guess, of quick match and ranked, but you already had that. It was called unranked. And it was a ranked rule set without the stupid little shiny badge that everybody agrees is. Most people who know a thing or two about the game agree it doesn't really matter that much, but that's not stopping a lot of people. It's just a very confusing set of changes, in my opinion, from a nomenclature point of view and a gamer culture point of view.
Because you come at this if you come at this from our point of view as developers, not only did they change quick match and kind of realize that this is kind of a poor. I mean, let's face it, they realized that it left a hole, right? That people want. People want that experience of a very casual game where you have access to all game modes, where you have access to yada yada. So then they go to unranked and like, okay, we're gonna have to do some unranked changes to unranked in order to make up for the changes that we're making to quick match. and now we're kind of gone into this spot where like one mode has been downgraded to make up for the fact that they want to change another mode, which most people eventually didn't even actually want to have in the first place. And that's what's so weird about this, because to me, this whole quick match idea, one, it should have been tested on the actual test server. We ran 2 tests for Frosts, which is not even coming out at the start of Season 3, but we never once checked check the heat for what people stand on the quick match changes. That's super odd to me. So that stuff needs to be tested in the first place, and actually you need to check how people actually feel about this, because clearly your predictions were wrong. I remember in the video itself where they were like, oh, we're confident people are gonna like this. No. Which you really need to check people's temp on stuff like this, because this is like a drastic change to the ecosystem of the game in its entirety. Not only are very casual players, you're taking that away from them. They can't play all maps anymore. They can't play hostage and secure area in the same aspect anymore, because now they also have the weird timings without, you know, the making up for that. But you're also completely ripping away the option to play unranked, so you screwed those people over too. And we haven't even gotten into how, at its very core, this is going to change the way people play Siege, because you're gonna have people that learn Siege the wrong way in quick match, and that's going to infect other modes eventually too. And it's also really funny. The last thing I want to mention, they even realized that quick match 2.0 was such a bad first impression for new players that you don't even unlock quick match 2.0 until you hit level 10. So the intended way that a new player is going to play is they go in, they play the tutorial, most likely, that I guess that's the goal, and then they either jump into like T-Hunt or they jump into Standard, play a couple of games, and then they unlock quick match 2.0, and at some point they unlock ranked at what, level 50 or something? That entire it feels like Ubisoft knew they fucked up, and they tried to instead of just admitting that it's just bad, they kept piling on like, oh yeah, just put it, cap it at level 10. They're change unranked for it. It's a mess. It's a mess.
They're trying to stratify so many different like player experiences. Here's player experience A, here's player experience B, here's player experience C, here's quick match, here's newcomer, here's ranked,
here's arcade modes.
Here's and it's like, dude, just let people play Siege. I feel like there is a, like, what I would call the standard mode would be what's played in competitive. I don't know if that's kind of elitist of me to say, but I feel like that would be the smart approach to go with here. I never understood why ranked didn't reflect the competitive rule set. I mean, I understand why, but like,
okay,
I always felt that the additional rounds, I'm serious. I think having more rounds to play out
that I agree with,
drastically change the way that people approach
that I agree
map knowledge, planning things out, because you can have a 2-4 split and you can come back.
Yeah.
Right? You can have the switch and then the game can be completely different at the second half. And now we don't have that. Right now, it's just, if you get defense first on theme park, you're either playing from a deficit or you're playing with a massive advantage. And it's just kind of, I think that's kind of lame. Personally, I think that you get so much more out of the game with that like level of flexibility. Do I think people should have to pick an operator in like 5 seconds here, figure it out? No. But just like this whole like comp, ranked, standard, quick match, unranked, like just let people play the freaking game. Let people learn the game. Let people experience it. And if they don't like it, then you're not going to do anything that's going to make them stay by doing all this other random stuff.
Yeah.
Like the way that you bridge that knowledge gap is by leaning on your media scene, is by leaning on your content creators, and also leaning on the fact that like this game's not really for everybody. Like we understand that it's a very complex thing with a lot of moving parts, and some people aren't going to like it.
And that's
okay. Like we're going to get more out of making our player base happy than I think trying to like attract everyone.
Yeah.
Which is what I think we thought we were doing with the esports like sole focus for a hot minute there. And I don't think that was the wrong play. But I can see that there were lessons learned from it now, and we should kind of take stock of that. So that's Too long didn't read. Add more rounds to ranked.
I agree.
I think more people would like that, and I don't know what the hell the standard is. It should. I thought ranked, unranked, quick match was.
It's so weird because
fine.
no other game has ever done it this way. If you play League of Legends, you have draft, which is a carbon copy of how the ranked mode would work. If you play Dota, there are 3 different unranks you can choose. There's like all pick, there's draft, and then there's captain's mode, where the captain actually drafts the teams.
You should make it as easy as possible for people to play the version of the game that you see on the big screen screen during your live streams.
Yeah, because I mean,
you should make that as easy as possible.
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to help people get to that point. I fully agree. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like this weird kind of like obsession with speeding things up or whatever. It's like, we don't need to do all of this. We've gone through 8 years of good and bad times by letting people learn themselves, by letting players make their choices. And we don't need the whole making everything faster or whatever. I don't like that.
I think it's classic. It's the classic problem of this game where we are trying to still figure out the marketing angle, like the marketing player base, the target demographic for the game. And we've gotten so much feedback over the course of several years. Anytime something is rolled out that people don't like, who gets blamed? Pro League. My favorite operator got nerfed. Pro League. This map got changed. Pro League. Yeah, thanks, Keeney. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Stan gone, so, Keeney's fault. He chose it.
And we're just and it's like, guys, like, I get it. It's annoying. We enjoy a good relationship with our competitive scene, our professional scene. Like Siege would not be the same without this group of people. There are some people who are just there's not a single thing you can do. I've tried for years. There's just some people who they see it as like an us versus them kind of dynamic, and there's not a single thing you can do about it. They see any kind of competitive play, any kind of professional play as a disconnect, as a incongruent sort of philosophical difference between the way that they approach it as a game and versus how other people treat it as a sport. So if you want to treat the game like a sport, you have to treat it like a sport. If you want to treat the game like a game, you treat it like a game. But like you gotta pick one, and that was one thing that we kind of I harped on quite a bit a couple of years ago when we were playing Gunner Whack-A-Mole, which we still kind of are, and we're going to talk about eventually here. But we were playing a lot of Gunner Whack-A-Mole a couple of years ago with Zof, with Mozzie, with Jaeger, and I was like, guys, we still have this thing called one-shot headshot and laser beam recoil, and this is going to go on forever. So you got to pick one. Like, you got to pick, are we doing like tactical, slower, deliberate movement, or are we doing arcadey twitch movement? Got to pick one. And eventually they pick the tactical, slower movement, which I agree.
Yeah.
I don't care what they do as long as they just pick one philosophy and stick by their guns and commit to it. That's all I care about. And so this whole like ranked versus unranked versus quick match thing just tells me like we're still going in too many different directions here. Like just pick one, stick to that vision, don't deviate.
Agreed.
Cool. I'm glad.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, any closing words on impressions?
This patch sucks. Don't roll it out. I hate it. I'm kidding. That was a joke.
I mean, take away.
That was my attempt at sarcasm.
What? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well,
cool patch. RAM is really cool. I'd like to see more map stuff. I don't know if we're going to see map stuff next season. I forget. But then again, we're probably going to get map stuff, and then someone's going to be like, I don't like it.
We're getting a new map next season.
Are we?
Yeah.
I can't wait to not play it.
It's going to get banned. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic. So, for those who don't know, there was a balancing designer note thing that released. Ubisoft released. I think they was it like 1 week after the test server had been out. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a couple of days, a week, something like that.
Relatively recently.
Where
on the 22nd.
While one, they released designer notes actually talking about what they were doing in this season, but this balancing note that we're going to talk about here was intended for changes beyond heavy metal. So it could relate to mid-season heavy metal. It could relate to season 4. It might even relate to things beyond this year. But we had a couple interesting topics that we wanted to talk about there. And as you literally talked about 5 minutes ago, probably one of the biggest changes that they mentioned is really good stuff. They mentioned that they're aware of sort of people's concern about TDM meta. They mentioned the concerns regarding, stuff like Ward and Yana. And most importantly, they talked about sort of what they have in the pipeline for the 1.5 and the frag grenades.
They gave it lip service, which was huge. Yeah.
Yes, like just that amount of... First of all, that communication is amazing, and I hope we get more of it. Keep that up.
Please.
But I think what's so cool to see is that they're not just, they're removing Warden 1.5, right? Oh, they're removing Yana's frag grenades. Like, no, they're actually planning on a more long-term solution for just adjusting the general power level of the 1.5 and frag grenades in general. So we don't get into this sort of whack-a-mole balancing where, if it's bad, give it a 1.5, give it frag grenades. Or if it's good, take away 1.5, take away frag grenades. That's really good stuff. Like, really good stuff.
It's towards a better vision of the game, in my opinion, a more interesting vision of the game than what we have currently, which I don't even dislike. I mean, I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people rely too much on the TDM meta argument. I hear it a lot of the time. A lot of people will blame TDM meta on a number of different, problems that they're having with the game personally. They don't really mean the same thing. But at the end of ultimately, the game shouldn't be just completely based around the gunfighting. I agree with that. I also have no, I'm very clear-eyed on this. I think that you're at a point where Ubisoft could do this change, and it could be a really smart solution to the problem. And we're not going to change a couple of aspects about this experiment. We're not going to change a couple of aspects in terms of the variables for the vacuum that we've created here. You're going to have people who can shoot. You're going to have people who can't shoot. And there's a lot of things you can tweak to adjust that scenario. But at the end of the day, if somebody can shoot and somebody can't shoot, when there are no other variables at play between person A and person B, person A will usually win. That's just how it is. That's true in any FPS game. It shouldn't be 100% of the time. There should be other things that person B can do to make an outplay. I already do them. They're called drones. It's called utility. It's called planning, right? There's lots of ways that you can alleviate the TDM meta for yourself. I don't think that it should be as difficult as it is now, but I do agree that there is a certain point. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult balancing act, but it's still one that needs to be done.
That brings up some interesting topics, because I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen people... There's been one question that's sort of been raised. I've seen it on Twitter a little bit. I've seen it, in my Twitch chat a little bit. Sort of the argument on whichever meta that I personally like the most. And then they bring up two options. TDM meta, what we have now, and I guess you can also kind of include LMG meta into that as well. What we're talking style of a meta, contra utility dump meta. And I would probably say that I think, for me, one of the metas that I by far enjoyed the most...
Let's see if I can predict you saying this.
I wouldn't say utility dump, at least not raw utility dump. But what I would say is I would probably say that Neon Dawn had one of the most enjoyable metas.
We were still in the Intel meta, right?
No. So Neon Dawn is when a runic comes into the game. And when they nerf Jäger and they nerf Wamai, they took away Wamai's shield, and I think they took away a disc. And Jäger was turned from 2 per thing to 1 per 10 seconds per thing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of their initial sort of changes, sort of tackling the utility dump meta. And there was still kind of a utility dump meta, but it was more manageable. It was more open, and obviously if you didn't play comp, then the utility dump meta was never as checklisty as it would have been in comp. I could see why it would become really boring in competitive play, but I feel like that sort of like the initial start of them starting to scale down utility dump was, to me, one of the more enjoyables. Because part of me kind of likes the whole checklisty stuff, because I have to drone, I have to check how much stuff you know is where, I have to figure out a plan to take it down, and that to me feels more like Siege is supposed to feel.
I didn't play comp in 2020, but I did. Well, that's not true actually. I did some Go For stuff. I did some Face It stuff, which I enjoyed quite a bit. But I agree. I think that if you are a comp player, like we shouldn't make the game like annoying to play.
Yeah.
For one population of people, that's not fair. But we also shouldn't balance it around one particular set of people.
I don't even think this comes into
common thing that everybody says. It's like, oh well, it is balanced around Pro League. Oh, they nerfed my favorite character. It's like, okay, dude.
I don't even think this has to do with
where
balance.
are we going with this conversation? Yeah.
I don't think this has to do with balance, and that's what I think a lot of people, when we start arguing about certain balance changes, don't really understand sometimes, is that this isn't about balance. They're not nerfing Warden because he's super in balance necessarily. They're not, nerfing. They didn't nerf Ashe for balancing. They're nerfing them.
The game's just not as fun as it could be.
It's not that. They're nerfing them because of the design. These operators not being played the way Siege is supposed to be. They want it to be a slower and more methodical game, and that's why a lot of fraggers over the years have been targeted, because they end up in a position where it starts making Siege feel less like it's supposed to be. And we get back to that. I've touched it on multiple episodes now of the podcast, and that is the fantasy of the game. When you jump into a game of Siege, what do you want it to feel like? We want it to feel like this badass tactical, make up a plan, break it down, right? That's what we want it to feel. We don't want it to be like, our Thermite got spawn picked, so now we're just trying to face check for the next 3 minutes.
I had a short where I was talking about this. The reason that I ended up not really enjoying playing entry frag in Siege had nothing to do with the actual like active entry fragging. It's that all these other characters have all this other cool shit that I don't get to use on entry frag characters.
Yeah.
Like, what does Ashe get? She gets like a grenade launcher. Like you blow up a shield or a camera.
Yeah.
Cool. So like she has a cool thing with the stun. I think the dynamic there is fun because it's like proximity based. There's some things going on. But yeah, there's so many characters. It's just boring.
There's so much cool stuff.
I've been entry frag.
There's so much
I've been entry fragging a lot. Exactly. I've been entry fragging a lot on Buck recently, even though I'm sure some people will be like, actually, Buck is technically a flex character because of his verticality and the canop. I was like, I don't care.
Dead ass.
Like, this is so boring, dude. I just want to go in and use my fun gun. And then if I see an opening, I buck it from above and then I go bang, bang. And it's like, it's interesting. There's
real shit though.
Stuff involved.
On that note, I am surprised that Fragger people haven't found out playing like Zero or Grim yet. You're a 3-speed with the two of the best guns in the game, and to be fair, their gadgets are pretty straightforward. Like, you can entry frag a Zero, and as you take ground, you can put up some Zero camps for flank watch, right?
Yeah.
It's super brain dead, and it's like, he's super good. He's 3-speed. He has so much utility, and like the day that they find out that Zero,
the SC3000 is a machine.
Yes, it could, and with extended barrel, it can 2-shot a 3-speed, which you see a lot in this current meta.
It's like a Half-Life alien gun.
Yes, like the day that they find out that Zero is like actually S-tier entry fragger up, who can also just put up some extra flank watch drones, essentially. Like, oh man, we're doomed.
He's a great ranked operator. Right? Like, he's not like, the reason that he's not good in comp has nothing to do with the other aspects of his kit, and that's the part that irritates me more than anything when people talk about this game, is that they just like, they fixate so heavily on their like personal experience, what their like day to day in their elo in their environment is like. Yes. And they never stop and think like, what could I do with all of this stuff? What is like the maximum amount of like possibilities that I have here?
This is something that you've seen in so many games, which is kind of sad. Like, I watch a lot of competitive League. Yes, smite me down. But
I don't care. I play Valorant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's even worse actually. But one thing that's always like saddens me is, even if you watch competitive play there, is like sometimes you just don't see people really think outside the box, and they can really like miss sort of these macro changes that could potentially be really good, but they're not used to thinking outside the box and what could actually be like a really good in this current position. And it's so sad because like Siege is a fantastic game once you start thinking outside the box and you start thinking about like what could I do different, what could I bring now that would actually change it, instead of just defaulting to Yana Warden every single round. Like you can actually like okay, well, they're gonna get the wall open anyway, so I might not as well played Kaid. We could just actually set up like a deeper hold inside with shields and stuff, and play around the fact that we know that the wall is gonna get open because Thatcher's open anyways. Like who cares? And like you never really see people think outside the box, but Siege is such a good game when you do. Like it's such a good game.
It's what makes the game. Like
Yes.
that's what makes the game interesting. And gosh, I had a point where I was going with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's fine. The thing about it is that what you do in a ranked environment doesn't have to be like 100 million%. I know where I'm going with this. It doesn't have to be like 100 million and 5 million% optimal, because like what is working in professional play is not something that you're going to be able to like copy paste at your level and be able to do. And that's the part that people don't get, is that like it's kind of difficult to balance this game around Pro League at all, because if we did, which we don't, by the way.
Yeah, we don't.
If we did, then nobody would even notice half of the freaking changes anyway.
And even
like,
with that argument,
that's why the whole Solis conversation comes up. Is
Yeah.
like because Solis is so good because of that isolated instance where it's like she interfaces with the utility so much. Like I had this question that was like, I know where I'm going with this now. I had a question not a long time ago, about a couple weeks ago, that was like, what is the least effective operator on attack in terms of utility, right? It's like a game theory question, like trying to like micromanage your decision making to the ultimate, like
I had that question too.
Point.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, everyone has a drone. Every attacker has 2 drones. There isn't a single operator in this game that doesn't have utility, because everybody has a drone and everybody has cameras. Every single character in the recruit has cameras and drones. And it's like, well, that's not the way that I wanted to phrase the question. And I'm like, I get that. But like, you need to, if you want to like learn the game, you got to approach it from a what is in my toolbox point of view, and just use every single tool you have in the toolbox. There was a great point in the article that we're talking about that 100% exemplified everything that I was trying to get across in terms of my like relationship with this game, in terms of making content for it, is that it's not about I play this and I only play this. No, like the simulation from like a lore fantasy point of view is there's like a station chief who's selecting people for a job. They select the people, they have these jobs, and each of those individual components of the op play a role. There isn't a single one that's not doing anything. Everyone is doing something, right? So it's mix and matching depending on the scenario that you go into. And there are some operators that are better in most scenarios than others, right? Warden and Yana, you can bring in pretty much every single scenario. But you couldn't clone Warden 5 times and bring him, because then you wouldn't be able to keep the wall from getting destroyed, right? You can't clone Yana 5 times. Well, you know, clone aside.
It's such an interesting thing to talk about that entire aspect of like the way that the community, and also like in competitive play, the way that people see as meta, and if we're talking meta in terms of the most effective tactic available, because on paper it might be the one that has the least speculative value and like most consistent value, but there are always going to be moments where you can assess the situation and you can do something outside of the box that's actually going to be more effective than the most usual thing. And you see this in comp too. You see games where, you know, there might be a defensive lineup that has brought an Echo and a Valkyrie, or hell, even a Solis, right, or whatever, on the lineup, and you don't see the attacker switch into IQ. Whereas, like, in that spot, she would be, like, yes, she's not a good operator, generally speaking, but in that scenario, she would be the best attacking operator you could bring. Right, just straight up, like she would be S tier in that scenario. But generally speaking, she's probably kind of meh.
Yes,
but that's again what makes Siege so cool.
It is a problem-solving game.
Yes, exactly. And I wish more people thought about Siege in this way, because we always do these like tier lists and like, oh, people just look at the S tier and they bring those 5 operators, but sometimes even a D or a C tier operator might be the best operator to bring in that specific scenario. They might literally be Z tier, like by far the best operator.
I say it every time I do a tier list. I'm like, this character going here does not mean they're bad.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they're bad. And then I get like a million comments that are like, why did you put this guy in? It's my favorite character. Yeah. I'm like,
it really just comes down to speculative value versus guaranteed value. That's what we're thinking about here. Yes. Yana is guaranteed value, which is one of the reasons what makes her good. Her frags are good, and you're always going to get something out of her gadget. That makes her really strong. Fuse.
Okay, so you know what we call this? Sorry, go on.
Fuse is much more speculative. First of all, this site that you're actually attacking has to work for him, and there's also the whole aspect of you might have to roam clear before you can actually start using his gadget. But if you get to that spot where you actually can start using the gadget, he might be way more valuable than Ayana would ever be attacking that site. But again, it comes down to speculative value versus guaranteed value.
So what you call this in fantasy sports? I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No, probably not, but pop up.
So, what's a good way to put it? So basically, fantasy sports is basically like a simulated game, right? Where you like pick the different players and then depending on how they play like that day, you tally up points depending on like their performance in their respective matchups. So what we would call it in fantasy sports is a performance floor versus a performance ceiling.
Yes. Yeah.
So for instance, a running back, for example, who's going to get like it's statistics, right? Like they are guaranteed that they're probably going to get 5 to 6 touches, right? Getting the ball in their hands, right? Throughout each of these games, right? So we can guesstimate that they're probably going to at least get this many points.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if they break away because they're like a really, phenomenal player, then they're also guaranteed they might, hit this many points depending on the situation. And then we have some running backs that are used in a much more like sparing manner because they don't, the coach doesn't want to get them hurt because they're a valuable asset. But if they break free, they might get a ton of points. Whereas if they don't break free, then it's like, they might get like a couple. So that's ceiling versus floor. And that is truly something I think that happens a lot in character-based games. Like there are characters that are just going to be a lot more guaranteed value in some situations. But then there are some who, if all things go according to plan, they might hit this. And that's not insignificant. That is something you should take into consideration in your planning is problem solving and statistics and how, what is the likelihood of this working? Because sometimes something that you might just completely overlook could work. In fact, if something that you think isn't going to work is done, then the other team might not anticipate it. And then you might be able to get a drop on them. And that's, that is Siege. And I think people interface with the game in terms of interfacing with a product, right? Like I bought this product and now my gameplay loop is to have fun. And however you quantify fun, people just, they prescribe their demands about the dopamine in their brain from whatever result they get in the game. And so if they don't want to freaking, learn the game, then they just don't do it. And so this is the problem with hero shooters since the beginning of time is that we can create it in a certain kind of way, but we're not necessarily going to force people to do it. CSGO got around this by just having like, okay, how many guns are there? AK, M4, SMGs, pistols, shotguns, sniper. Okay, flash, molly, smoke, decoy. Done. Cool. And then econ, that plays a role. So that's why like sports are a lot more simpler in their design because that removes a lot of the variables. Yeah. Whereas it's kind of tough to balance this game like a sport in the same kind of way, even though I think it is a lot of fun because there's so much going on, right? It's balancing for
multiple levels.
Balancing for
in multiple levels.
Yeah. It's balancing for football as opposed to football.
That was good.
Hey.
Football. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
I did a lot of foreign languages in college. I wanted to get back into it.
Oh. So Swedish.
Might pick up French again. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I know. Yeah.
I'm kidding. But yeah, I feel like we kind of got derailed. So going back to it, 1.5 in frag grenades. So Ubisoft are instead of taking them away, from these two operators that are being highlighted with them, they're planning on doing some more significant changes to them, it seems, which are potentially really, I mean, a way better solution, I think. We kind of talked a little bit about it before we started recording today. I feel like when it comes to the way that they're probably going to touch the 1.5, I mean, obviously, it's most likely going to be some sort of nerf overall to the scope. I think there are probably 3 ways that would be likely that they actually do. Either option 1, which is that they might nerf the reticle a little bit, maybe make the dot a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit more cumbersome to use, akin to the old red dot, right? Because it being too big was always an issue that people highlighted. But I'm not saying that they're gonna turn it as big, of course. Don't freak out yet. But yeah, that's one thing that I can see them doing. The other thing is obviously a similar one where they sort of change the housing of the red dot, make it a little bit more, take up a little bit more real estate when you're ADS'd potentially. And then the third option, which I guess is more of the nuclear option, which you mentioned as well, is that they might be considering stuff like changing the actual, like a pros and cons type stuff akin to Call of Duty, where it might affect stuff like ADS speed or similar, which I could totally see them do as well. Like I think those 3 options are one of them is gonna happen.
There's something else that I was thinking of was like a pick 10 system where it's like if you bring a scope, then you can't have a
no. I hate that. I
no create a class.
I love create a class.
Kind of are making create a class though, aren't we? I mean, like so many characters can open wall, they can help open wall.
I always loved create a class in general until they added the like pick 10 system, because I felt like that was just a bad excuse.
Really?
Yes. Like I loved it back in like Modern Warfare 2, where you could just pick whatever the hell you wanted.
I thought Black Ops 2 like had the perfect. Oh man,
I didn't really play Black Ops 2, but I did play some of the older ones that had pick 10, and I was always just so annoyed. Like, you know, why does this stop me from, like, just because I put a vertical foregrip on my gun, why can't I put a sight on my gun? That's stupid. I don't like that. I never liked that, because I always felt like that was just a limit for the sake of having a limit, right? What does it change if I can have 2 attachments versus if I can have 5 attachments? Because everyone else gets the same level playing field. So I would never want that personally. I hate pick 10s.
This is getting into, this is a deep cut. So this is getting into like game design theory here. So one of the things that I think is really understated that doesn't get talked about pretty much at all, it comes up with the CC75, because that the sights on that thing are just like a giant block.
Yeah.
And that gun statistically is very good. It's one of the better machine pistols, but you wouldn't know it because you can't aim at what the heck you're shooting at.
Yeah.
So that's the caveat. And I don't really like balancing that way, because then it just kind of adds like an arbitrary sort of like thing that gets in your way. It's like, I could have fun with this, but I like can't. The fun of the game is hitting those headshots. And so what ends up happening is, this is what I think Call of Duty did a really good job with. A lot of the sights in Call of Duty, like the actual iron sights, a lot of them are pretty good. I mean, a lot of them are really solid. Yeah. Like I remember each of them, they tried to make them like distinct and visually clear enough so that you could actually like take them over, say, a red dot. The red dot was really cool. Like it helped, but it didn't make or break the weapon. And in the case with Siege, like the reason I think we talk about sights so much is because like there's no point in not putting on a scope. Also, a lot of the iron sights in this game, frankly, stink. Like they're just not good. Like the R4C irons are like notoriously bad. Same irons on, I think, on the V308. And then you have some situations like the MP7 where it's like, wait a minute, these irons are actually really good. In some cases, some people actually run them because they're more comfortable with them.
MP7 iron sight is actually S tier. I genuinely run that. Like on Finner and Bandit, I'm running iron sights.
Something I would do with the Vector every once in a while, I kind of got in the habit of it for a bit. When Thatcher was really popular, it was very common for the Mira to get EMP'd. So I just run her Vector with irons, and then I wouldn't lose my sight when I got EMP'd.
Yeah.
And I got like decent kind of leverage out of it. I just think like I hate the attachment balancing thing. It's just really lame. It's just not a fun way to look at the game design. I think that the smart thing to do in this case would be, and this is gonna sound kind of crazy. I think we shouldn't leave going onto the iron sights like as off the table. I don't think we should completely remove that from the conversation.
Right.
I think that that should be an option for players to use. I don't know how you're going to make it into an option that's more appealing because there's no trade-off to not using a sight. But the EMP situation I did outline, that is something that does happen. Very niche case scenario that I wouldn't prescribe to a lot of things. However, I don't think, like, if we're talking about giving people options, I don't know why the CZ75 has crappy irons. I don't know why the R4C has crappy irons. I don't know why, like I don't think a gun in Siege should just have like awful. I don't think it should be difficult to aim with a gun in Rainbow Six. That's just my takeaway. To that point about the scopes, I think that the scope situation is overstated quite a bit. But the only way you're going to get to that point is if you're at a certain kind of mechanical skill floor that's just not really obtainable by a lot of people. So Shaiko, I think, still runs like 1x optics on pretty much everything he runs, but he also runs like stretched res, like super stretched, because he's like familiar with that. That is an
interesting topic in general, because we always see this with other games like Valorant, and I believe it also Fortnite. They eventually ended up actually locking aspect ratio to native aspect ratio, like which that's definitely like an argument that
I don't know if I disagree with that.
I don't either, but it's like I feel like it's such a hot take, but like generally I'm kind of on the side of like thinking that that is a good thing.
I think it depends on the game,
because 4x3 can be an advantage. You can turn a 1x into a 2x by playing 4x3. And that's kind of like, I don't know, like, I don't like that, because that causes issues with balancing on its own, because now you have to take into account that, like, someone can run 4x3, and that causes, like, that kind of gives them an advantage. Like,
I wouldn't run stretch res for the longest time, because when you're doing content, I mean, maybe some people notice and some people don't.
Yeah,
I run 1610.
Yeah, I run 69 as well. But
that's like the closest, I think that's like the content creator stretched res. It's like the one where it's like people won't notice, but like it does help with the gameplay a little bit.
Yeah.
I just.
But it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have to. Your game. There are a lot of things that players should be able to do to impact their own performance and play better. But game settings should never be it, right? We have other games like PUBG where people turn down foliage so they can see people from further away. And if people play with better graphics, they get a disadvantage. That should never be the case. Obviously, I get that people turn it down to get better FPS and stuff. That's fair. Like that's not really something you can design around. You can't intentionally make people have worse FPS because they're playing with lower graphics. But stuff like 4x3 really and stuff like that should not be a thing that a player has to struggle with actually deciding. Like, do I want my game to look worse and feel worse because it gives me a competitive advantage? No, absolutely not. But it is. Right now, like,
it's not fun design.
If you're not playing 4x3, you're giving yourself a disadvantage. Like, I don't. I mean,
depending on your play style, yes. If you're playing a very aggressive like entry fragger play style, yeah, you want to have like as much stretch as possible as you can get away with.
I think that still applies to you for playing like long range angles too, because stuff appears closer to you, and when stuff appears closer to you, it's just
but things also move faster. The relative speed also feels a lot faster.
Sure, but
you see what I mean?
Yeah,
because there's less. Yeah,
I still think in general I would say
that's why. So that's what the concept of like relative speed comes from, right? So like if you're, like if I'm standing here and then somebody is strafing me this close, it's gonna feel like they're moving really quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're further away.
And we are back again, and you have the second Dokubi call has gone out, so she's out of them now.
Hopefully. She might be cheating.
Okay. Damn. All right. Anyways, not
on me.
We're talking relative speed. Obviously, there's the whole argument. I definitely think that in general, 4x3 is an advantage, and again, it's not really a choice that players should have to make. You should be able to play the ratio that you genuinely want and that looks best, and it shouldn't really come off as an advantage personally.
Yeah, I agree, and I think reducing variables, like it's just a conversation like nobody wants to have, especially and I get why, because we've been running this professional scene for so long, but the most like the most widespread sports thrive off of simplicity, not for the sake of simplicity, but for the sake of reducing the amount of BS involved.
Yeah,
and that's why football, as we call it, soccer in the States, is so widespread. Is because who can play it? Anyone. All you need is you need a field, 2 nets, and a ball, and anyone can play it. Kids can play it. Adults can play it. What do? You kick it around. You kick it to this. You kick it to this person. You kick it to that person. You can't touch it with your hands. Like, that's simple, right? There's not a lot of wiggle room there.
I know what we're doing.
The beauty of
I know what we're doing at SI this year. We're playing football. Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh, I'll get my ass kicked.
Oh, yeah,
Please,
yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. We'll see how simple it is, old man.
It's not. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not simple in the sake of, like, there's a lot going on, and there's new sciences of it understood every. I mean, geez, every World Cup. That's what I find so fascinating about it, because you had this they had this Moroccan team that took down Ronaldo's Portugal team with a very defensive oriented kind of approach to the game that no one had really like seen in the mainstream quite yet. Now, given this is a really old game, okay, this has been around for a long time, and we're still learning new stuff about it. That's pretty remarkable.
That's cool.
So I think that the most like having a lot of different customization, I get it, guys, but like this isn't Gundam, okay? This isn't Armored Core. Like this is an FPS game. This is an FPS game with a competitive scene. If we could, like, it goes back to my argument about like quick match, unranked, ranked. Like you got to pick one approach and then like stick to that.
Yeah.
And people don't think that it has a pretty significant effect on the scope balancing argument, but it does, because like this is all going to roll out, and Shaiko's still going to be running the 1x, baby. Okay, like Shaiko's still going to be running Hollow A.
Not everyone's Shaiko though.
You know, I know not everyone's Shaiko, but that's, you know, as soon as you roll something out, it's going to be like, how does this affect everyone? And that's you know, we can't balance for like a million different people.
But circling back to that very point though, one of the sentences that I really resonated with, and I'm very happy to actually hear Ubisoft say in general, is that they want to make less binary changes in the future. So the way I read into that is that they want to do less of these on-off switch type balancing, and that's really good to hear in general from them. I think they just want to like do like genuine changes across the game itself that changes these sort of issues. I mean, we mentioned it before. We have, for example, frags that can literally make or break an operator. They're that good right now. You can make an operator meta by giving them frag grenades. You can take them out of the meta by taking out frag grenades. And that's not how we should Maverick. That's not how we should. Maverick is underrated though, to be fair. Anyways, going back to like, and it's really good to hear Ubisoft mention that they're aware that hasn't been very good. They've made or break characters by taking or giving away certain stuff, and that's not how balancing should be. Balancing should nudge things in a certain direction, but it shouldn't just turn them off. Shouldn't just unalive an operator, because a change like this shouldn't be nearly as impactful as they have been, right? You shouldn't be able to kill an operator by taking away a secondary.
Yeah, that's
gadget.
silly.
Yeah. So
it's a secondary gadget. It's not supposed to be like their entire thing.
Yeah.
And that's something that Valorant kind of touched on. Because the one thing that I noticed is that there's not a lot of characters in that game with like a frag grenade, like in air quotes, like Raze. Like her whole thing is having a grenade, like a typical grenade that you think of in like FPS game, like throw thing, go boom grenade.
Yeah.
And then in Counter-Strike gets away from that because everyone can buy a grenade. But then in Siege, not everyone can have a grenade. Some people can have a grenade. Some people can't have a grenade. And so like a grenade is a really powerful tool in a game like this. I get that. But I personally, I mean, I've talked about it on the pod quite a bit with you. I think that the Dota method here is what's going to work with a character-based game like Siege. I think the Incredibles balancing model, the Syndrome balancing model of like if everyone's OP, no one can be OP kind of model works to a point. I don't want the game to be like ability spam.
Yeah.
That's bad. I play Valorant. I like Valorant. Don't do Valorant. It's not going to work in this kind of context because there's too many things going on. The reason that it works in Valorant is because there's back and forth a little bit and it's a little bit more consolidated. A lot of people still don't like it and they don't play it. In Siege, if we end up with this whole, I started to notice it during the test server where we were just like, okay, what can we do here? Throw a ram. Okay, Grim, 5 million bees, gridlock, frag grenade, fire.
That was kind of fun though.
It was fun. I agree, but that is going to get really old really quick. And people are going to like point it out and get really irritated about it if that's the direction we go in. But so don't do that.
I wouldn't say necessarily don't do that, but just stay on top of it, right? If that
just keep an eye on it. Don't let it get out of control.
Thing, then change it. Right? Because at the end of the day, it's fun when the game... Yeah, exactly. It's fun when the game changes. It's not fun when a change lasts 9 months. Right?
When we have a problem and then we isolate it and then we're sitting around like...
And it's also the fact that eventually...
It's like the Solis thing, yep.
Well, I was going to touch on that. Initially, it might not seem as an issue because a lot of people don't catch on to it that fast, but some people will do, and they'll start talking about it. And as we talk about it, like for example, as I started mentioning Solis is an issue, yada yada, you've started mentioning as an issue. Now more and more we're starting to see even more people catch on and realize that, wow, she's busted. So the longer an issue remains, the more of an issue it becomes, right?
Yeah,
like Solis has pretty much been unchanged, and initially she was okay. I found her okay within Solar Raid itself. Now, when everyone else has started catching on and realized how broken she actually is, it's hell. It's hell on earth to play against. I despise it. But anyways, I'm not going to go on a Solis rant for too long. But nonetheless, it's really good to see Ubisoft actually be aware of like the way that we've talked about sort of issues with their balancing philosophy. The new communication that they've taken here is super good, and it's
more of it.
It's so good to hear directly from the developers that they are aware of the issues that we're highlighting, because prior to this notes coming out, a lot of the issues that we've highlighted for the last 6 months kind of felt like it fell on deaf ears. And honestly, just hearing that, like, okay, yo, we're aware, that is so good. Because even if I know that the change is not coming this season, which I was kind of sad about, it's nice to hear that they're at least saying that in the pipeline we have a change for these things.
Yeah,
cool. I don't care if it's
it'll be interesting to see, it'll be interesting to see what happens on top of that with the shield stuff.
Well, it allows us to be excited for stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back is. I feel like I'm saying that too much. But with that, they did also mention some key operators that they have stuff for. I think they said in an upcoming mid-season update, so it could mean this mid-season, it could be next season's
Azami,
mid-season.
right?
They talked about Yana, Azami, Warden, Solis, and Blackbeard as sort of like key problem operators that they want to do more large scale changes with. But I think
a lot of sense to me.
I think they also mentioned that they might want to do like a short term change while they're working on long term changes for them as well, which I will say I don't think the general community would be super happy unless it's communicated properly. But personally, I'm very happy with that. I would totally take like something that temporarily, brings down a problem operator if there's like a longer scale fix for them in the future. Like hypothetically speaking, what happens if we for now just lower Solis's range to I don't know, 9 meters while they work on a more significant scale change? Or like what if they take away Akiba from Azami while they have a long-term rework for her plan, just to sort of bring them down a notch but not really like screw them off too much. And if that's what's actually going to happen, that's super good. And it's also really like refreshing to see them actually mention Blackbeard as a problem operator, because it's easy for him to have gotten like on the wayside of things, because we've talked a lot about like especially Azami, Solis in the last 9 months. But it's nice
we added Osa, and it was we added Osa, and it was pretty. I think a lot of people kind of read the room there and sort of went, okay, that kind of seems like what we wanted to do with Blackbeard, but for various reasons we didn't do that. I kind of agree, like, yeah, we need a new op every 3 months, so we can't justify just like going a month and just making it, okay, here's a rework, even if it is like a new op.
Yeah.
In terms of functionality. Plus, like, there are Blackbeard mains out there that are going to be like, and just like freak out. The thing with Blackbeard that's so frustrating is that I wish he'd never been added.
He's a bad design. No matter what you do balancing, it's not going to be good, because if you nerf him, then people get mad that he's not good enough, and if you buff him, then you get mad because he just punishes you for having good aim.
They put him in the timeout corner because like they realized that they made a mistake, and they just kind of they've been putting it off for like again and again and again, and it's like it's not I'm not mad about it. I just
it's just a bad design.
I wish that there was but I'm not sure what they can do. Like give him a shield on his like chest down, which like I don't.
I think they're probably have a more large scale thing. I don't think they want, because also it's Siege, and I think it's such an outdated concept to have like such a selfish gadget. Like there's a lot of selfish gadgets in Siege, but a lot of them can still to some degree help out a teammate. Like even if a Jackal scans something, his entire team gets the ping on where they are, right? So it's like, yes, it's kind of selfish, but still, like, it can, apply to your team. Blackbeard is just completely for himself. And I don't think they like that either. I don't think they want an operator in a team-based game to, like, just benefit himself.
The goal was to make him into an Overwatch backline supportive character who could watch his teammates' backs and watch cutoffs and flanks. And I think if you want to do that, you have to make him into a different iteration of the formula that you cooked up with Osa. So I think the thing with Osa that makes her stand out is that she's a lot more mobile and she has more flexibility with the shield placement. Like she can put the shield down, and then she can pick it up, and then she can move it somewhere else. And she's a lot more dynamic like she's not a movement-based character, but she's not immobile, right? Like she can maneuver. So I think with Blackbeard, you could have him be like a more dedicated, like sentry character.
He should have like
I don't know how you would accomplish that.
And then like you put down the LMG, and then the head has like bulletproof windows in front of the LMG.
I think that would work. Yeah, if there was a character a long time ago
but I agree, honestly. Like
I honestly don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I do want to point out that one thing that a lot of people get confused, because I've even seen people say that they want Ult Tachanka back. Stop, get some help. But
no, you don't.
Hey, it had its fun stuff, but regardless, one of the issues that was with Tachanka, and one of the reasons that they eventually ended up actually fully reworking, was that there were a lot of like bugs. Like I think a dev told me once that like, in almost every single patch they had to address bugs with Tachanka, and it was on a character that people didn't even use, but it was causing so many issues, and that comes down to like technical depth, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to, 8 years into the game, keep patching a character that was released 8 years ago, because
it's a pain.
It's just constantly issues coming up with the character. So for that reason, they will probably never do a gadget like that again, because you don't want to sit and keep patching the character over and over. And that also that's the kind of stuff that also lowers the amount of content that we actually get. Why we're not getting 2 operators per season now, that's because we have a backlog of 70 characters that still have to have maintenance performed on them to keep them up to date.
Well, nobody gives a crap about any of that. Keeney, Ubisoft fixed the game.
Oh yeah, true.
Nobody knows that it's like an engineering problem. There's like specifics. There's physical things that you have to do, that you have to code, and you have to do correctly. Yeah. It's it's like it's a job like anything else.
Yeah, I mean there's just a lot more content that they just have to keep up to date now. Back then, when they added 2 operators per season, there were only 20 operators. Now there's 3 times the content that they have to maintain, and it's with anything. It's like with a PC, with a car. You have to maintain it so it lasts, that it keeps running. I have to explain this for the people that don't get it. Game dev just doesn't simply work. It doesn't.
Hell no.
It nothing. No, dude.
Hell no.
Just think about the average amount of tech issues that you personally run into in your daily life. Like my router broke down a couple days ago. Like it just died. It killed itself. It committed Sudoku, and I had to get a new one. And it's like, and then my phone charger broke down, so I had to go get a new phone charger. And that happens in game dev all the time too. Code just decides to, and it's just constant stuff that you have to maintain and replace and fix. And people don't understand
like
that
programmers.
aspect,
like programmers are like the unseen like heroes of the modern generation. I just like I tried getting into coding because like I had that whole like everybody caught the coding bug like around coronavirus when it dropped. It's like, oh, we're not doing anything else, so might as well learn a new skill. And then I tried to learn it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, no. It was like the basic. I was like HTML. That's like the basic one that everybody knows for like web development. And I was just like,
I would say if you're genuinely interested, Unreal Engine has the whole like blueprints system, which is very easy to get like a baseline understanding of it, and then you can later on scale that into actual code. It's like
if I make $1 million, I'll just hire someone. No.
Yeah. Fair.
No.
Just saying, if you want to get into game dev, Unreal Engine blueprints are super good. You basically can make like a flow chart, and then the flow chart writes the code kind of for you.
Yeah.
But whatever. Let's keep talking about the notes.
Problem ops.
Well, I wouldn't say problem ops. I feel like was there anything else you wanted to mention there in the problem ops? I think it's good.
I thought it was interesting Azami got thrown into the conversation. Do you think they might have like a health pool system for gadgets moving forward here? Like shoot it like
I kind of wanted to like finish off with Azami.
Let's finish with Azami, yeah.
Yeah, but we can speed run through the next two topics that I would kind of mention because they go kind of by kind of fast. Obviously, one of the things they talk about is that they have delayed the Frost rework till mid-season heavy metal because they still want to like sort of gather data on her on the test server. Probably they didn't get too much good testing since the test server was only available with Quick Match 2.0, which with Frost is a really bad.
That really, yeah.
Like
I didn't touch the test server much at all because of that. I'm gonna be real.
Mira couldn't put down her mirrors properly. Frost can't do specific Frost mats they want to set up with vaultable rotations because sometimes they were already an open crouch rotation. So it just didn't give good data, I guess, on Frost specifically. Because sometimes it was just reinforced where it shouldn't have been or whatever. So, but they delayed it. I would say in general, I mean, we've talked about it before, but I'm just honestly, personally, I wish they just shipped it and just let it.
I agree.
Let it happen.
That seems kind of odd.
Just let it ride. See what happens. Yeah. I feel like there's such a weird aspect with this whole Frost rework, with like Ubisoft making it way bigger than it's supposed to be. One, they showed it off as like a big, cool new content coming at SI.
Which is the only reason people got mad about it.
Yes, that was the only reason. Then it had its own lab test server completely for itself. Not even Quick Match 2.0 had that. And then they tested out on the test server thing. And then they go back to the drawing board. Like, just ship it. Like,
I think they're worried about. I think they're worried about people just having a fit.
Yeah, but the longer they draw it out, the bigger it's gonna become. Just rip off the Band-Aid, and if she ends up being too bad or too good,
she's not.
Then adjust some numbers. Then, like, you're making this way too big.
Not. Okay, I'm gonna say something controversial when it comes to game development. Not all feedback is good feedback.
True.
Sometimes people don't know what they are talking about.
Yep.
You ignore them, and then you move on.
Yep.
That's that's just how it is. Like the Frost thing, it's gonna roll out, and then everyone's gonna forget they ever got upset about it in the first place.
Yes, because
just like every other big like operator thing.
Yes. Like
it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you, Ubisoft. Siege players are just like this.
Yes.
You take away their favorite toy, they're gonna get mad.
Yes.
You give them a different toy, they're gonna be like, "Oh, cool! Here's my new toy." and that's how it is. Like you just gotta like full send, because the reason that they're mad isn't because they'll tell you that it's because of all these reasons. It's not. They're mad their favorite operator got nerfed. That's it.
Pull the band-aid off. Just do it. Just full send, ship it, and let that be it. If you go overboard, adjust it. You're making this way too big. It never should have gotten this amount of attention from Ubisoft themselves. It should have just been any other patch note. Literally. It should have been any other patch note. It's not that big to receive this amount of attention. We've spoken about it as its own topic twice on this podcast now. It doesn't even deserve that. So we're moving on to the next thing. They mentioned the shield reworks. The ballistic shield reworks. Not Clash included. Some people have been confused about that. As a avid shield enjoyer, I'm excited to play around with them. I've looked forward to them the entire year.
Just remove the interaction where I am getting pressured from a blitz, and then he is hip firing with this thing, going like this, going pew 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 pew, and then I'm like, okay, hi blitz, how's it going? And then I try to shoot him in the hand to keep him from going like pew 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 pew, and then I do chip damage to him, and then he keeps going, and he's like. Pew, 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 and then headshot.
Well, that is one of the things they're adjusting,
I won.
To be fair.
That is, yes.
They're taking away the RNG of shield combat, both for the shield themselves, but also for the person fighting blitz, which is, it's super good. Like, less RNG combat, I'm all for. Like,
Realism bros, I don't know if realism bros know this, but if I shoot someone in the hand, I don't care how, it doesn't matter, okay? If I shoot someone in the hand and with a bullet, do I need to explain it?
No.
Of course I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're right. No, but
it happened
genuinely, the changes are good. They're aiming to make shields actual tanks. Like, not only are they nerfing the whole combat prowess of them, but they're also buffing the whole resilience aspect. The shields are gonna be bigger, I'm pretty sure, which is good. Like, at the moment, shields are... they should be tanks design-wise.
A supportive map gaining bulwark for the attacking team.
Yeah, right now, in sort of game design terms, I would more or less consider them bruisers or off tanks.
Yes.
Which that's not what they are supposed to be. They are just supposed to be straight up tanks that are crowd controlling you and not really damaging you. They are just supposed to be there in your face. Taking up your attention.
Draw your attention.
Yes, exactly.
Fighting a Monty right now is like one of the top 5 like most annoying. A good Monty is like one of the top 5 most annoying gameplay loops in Siege right now, because like literally it's crosshair placement, the game.
Yeah.
It's like it's Osu. It's like I have to like the only way I can get the guy to put the stupid shield down is to go like this. And then swing around and then maybe hit the like That's how you play against that's what you're supposed to do. Because the whole thing is like he makes you look away, and he's not gonna look if you're looking this way and you're like, what's up? Hey, how's it going? He'll be like,
He's standing there menacing.
You have to do something now. You have to do something, Montang.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and he's like, You have to look away. You have to look all the way around, and then I'll unshield. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is dumb gameplay. This is not fun. I don't care if it's balanced. It's not fun. God, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Shields,
but
my favorite topic.
Honestly, I'm really excited to toy around with the new shields. Yeah. I've seen people raise concerns. It's cool. Like finally, they might actually make Fuse Shield like a genuine like option. Because that's one of the issues right now with Fuse is that I touched on it earlier. When you're playing Fuse, you kind of have to roam clear before you can start fusing effectively. If Fuse actually has a shield, then it can more safely roam clear, which might be like a genuinely good option. And, not to be that guy, but we spoke, when we were at SI, we spoke to some of the game designers and other people at the devs about the potential of when this change comes in to actually allow more characters to have the option of a ballistic shield, aka Thermite.
We spoke to the dev team.
Shut up. That did not sound like that.
I'm just busting your balls.
Yeah, and that's really cool. Like that opens up the world of like the almost create a class aspect, which I fucking love. Like we can have more operators in the game have these optional play styles of picking a little bit more safety because you're planning on having a certain job as an attacker in this sort of like more mid-round department. Like as Thermite, I want to guarantee that I survive the early round because I have a job to do mid-round. Or, you know, maybe Gridlock because I want to get in before I can start putting my tracks out and stuff. So that might open up the world of Siege so much, and I'm so excited for
I love your analogy about off tank versus tank.
Yeah,
because that is a pretty good way to describe it. Yeah, like now they feel like off tanks.
Yes,
bruisers. Where they have this like they might like if you don't give them enough attention, then they will kill you.
Yes,
and it's like this is no other character in the game is like this. Every other character I take the gunfight with, and then sometimes I don't take the gunfight with this person, and then sometimes I have to run away. Sometimes I can't do anything. Sometimes the correct thing is to let them get what they want, and that's dry, boring gameplay, in my opinion. Like if I hear like a ka-chunk of a shield, my option shouldn't just be like, okay, now I can't do anything. I have to run. That's lame. That's super lame gameplay. Don't like it. That's just my opinion. And poor Fuse, like to your point, he's just chilling there because he doesn't have a gadget on top of the shield, right? So he's just like, I'm a shield operator, but worse than every shield op.
I am a Fuse shield enjoyer, so you know you're standing in.
The AK-12 is so good though, man. It's so good.
It is, but we'll see. I'm definitely gonna be looking into that once we get around to season 4, which is when that's coming. But
it'll be exciting to talk about. We'll get a lot of engagement off of it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But also, last topic of today, before we sign off. Azami, the big one that got its very own note. Like not only did they mention her in this sort of like problem ops point, but also she got her own sort of thing talking about that in year 9 they're talking about a more sort of like long-term change coming for her. Obviously, I think they might still do something, like I said, like a temporary nerf where they might remove a Kiba or so. But in year 9, they're planning a more large-scale change there. And they also mentioned that they want to allow attackers to play more aggressively around them, which is very interesting.
Not sure what that means.
I have some theories.
It tells me they might add like a HP bar.
Yeah.
Like if you shoot it enough, it destroys it?
Yeah, that is one of them. I think it could also be something like they might add like a barricade aspect to it, where like if you shoot enough bullets, you could chip off pieces of the so it actually becomes like a physics object. I don't know if that's something that the engine can actually do. Like,
yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
That could be kind of cool because then you could actually.
How do you think the engine treats it? Like, do you think it just treats it as like hard terrain? Because you can't. I mean, for the same reason that you can't shoot a building, you can't shoot a Kiba, right?
It's weird because a Kiba can be reshaped by standing in a certain position, and it won't extend the whole way. So I don't really know exactly. Like, it's not just one big object. Like, it has. I think it's like
it has unique properties.
It has different like pie-shaped forms that connect out and extend out as much as it can. So it's not like one big object. So if they were to rework it to that, where they would actually have to make it so you could chip off pieces of it, that would be a quite significant rework of how it actually works. But who knows?
Yeah, and the more I think about it, that gadget's got to be one of the more complicated ones in the pool in terms of like the engineering behind it.
But who knows? Maybe they do something like that. That could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, I will say I'm very excited, happy, that Ubisoft are being very careful with Azami, because Azami is,
I agree,
while she is probably one of the strongest defenders that they've ever added into Siege, she's also by far, from a casual standpoint, one of the most fun operators that also contributes to the Siege loop in a positive way and not a negative way like Solis.
she exemplifies
Yeah.
a lot of things about Siege
Yes.
from a gameplay design perspective that are very exclusive to Siege, and I like that.
I like that they're being careful with her, even though
Yeah.
I'm also happy that they might temporarily nerf her, which it would be completely fair. Because you don't want to kill what makes Azami cool. Like, you don't want to... Like, I've seen some people say that, like, oh, the Azami barricades should melt after 15 seconds. That completely takes away what makes her cool. Like, she's a site setup character at the end of the day. But I mean, the whole argument that they used with the, like, oh, you can play more aggressive around Azami, they might make Azami more of like an exponential curve with the way that she gets Kibas. I think right now she has all of her Kibas at like 140 in a round, which is quite fast. You have operators like Leishan that gets
exponential curve sounds like a good idea, because that way she has more flexibility towards the beginning of the round, and then you have to be more selective towards the end. I agree, that would be a good idea. I meant it
the other way.
Yeah.
So
the other way.
So maybe it could be like a situation where you start with 2 Kiba barriers in pocket, but the last 3 you only gain towards the end, because that also puts more pressure on the Azami to actually stay alive, and it allows attackers to make a conscious decision to play very aggressive early in order to try to kill her off earlier. So you start with 2, and then like maybe, you know, 1.5 minutes into the round, or maybe 1:15, whatever, you get one of your Kibas, and then the last 2 come somewhere within the last, I don't know, 40 seconds or something. Maybe you only get one at the very, very, like, 20 seconds after. Because then,
you know,
you force her to stay alive, which is... It's something that I try to highlight now whenever I'm playing my games. When you see, like, someone spawn peek with Azami, that should be punished, right? If you die early as Azami, you should be punished. Because you are an operator that is designed to, well, supposedly designed to stay alive for as long as possible and generate as much value as possible. But you have people play aggressive with Azami, and that is an issue. But by making it so that as an Azami player, you're essentially forced to stay alive in order to get that insane value that she can actually potentially bring, I think that would put her in a much better spot. And again, it also allows attackers to make the whole decision that, like, okay, guys, they have an Azami, we gotta take ground and we gotta take it fast. And that also applies to stuff like Wamai, stuff like Leishan, right? Like, that's kind of how you want to play against these guys. These are operators that you want to take ground against fast, because the faster you do it, the less value they are actually going to be able to bring to the table. So that could be something that I could see them do, that I would actually kind of like, is to sort of make a reverse exponential curve in the way that she gets her Kibas.
That's an interesting balance point, because you can balance characters to be strong in certain aspects, like at timings. Like, you can have them, instead of like giving a net nerf, you can isolate the problem and then keep like the balance equation still pretty even. If you isolate that variable and just like make sure that they're like strong in this phase of the round versus another phase of the round.
Yeah, because that's kind of the way I look at Azami. Like, I mean, all operators are like that. Some operators are really good early round. Some operators are really good late round. Like Smoke, for example. Smoke, I would definitely consider is an operator that shines the most in the whole late round aspect. And Azami can 100% kind of be that too. She could be that sort of like mid round, late round
adjustment character.
Right? Exactly. You adjust to the holes that have been created throughout the round. That could be sort of a good where you can land.
Because that was the whole comparison and contrast with Castle, was that Castle is static.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And you set up what you're doing at the beginning.
Set it up, and then you can go spawn pick or whatever, and you're not punished for dying as Castle. But if you die early as Azami, that's, you know, you lose out on that. And I wish they emphasized that more. I wish they emphasized Castle as more of a setup operator, and Azami is more like patching things up kind of operator. I think that would be good.
Yeah, and it's tough because there's so many characters that you can, you know, roam with just for the heck of it. I mean, like, hell, how many people roam with Doc? It's not like you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you take a gunfight and then you heal up. Like, that's a benefit. You can also die, but you can also not die. So it's one of those, like, it's one of those.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier, speculative value versus guaranteed value. In order to guarantee value out of my proposed Azami change, is you need to stay alive. And that puts her...
I'm okay with that.
Right? And again, it gives attackers to be able to make a conscious decision to play more aggressive. And not just aggressive because of the TDM meta or whatever. No, we play aggressive because it'll allow us to actually get value on an operator that's gonna scale. And this is something we see in other games too. You play League or you play Dota. There are characters that are good right out of the gate. They're good in lane. And then there are characters, like I said, there are characters like Silencer in Dota or Nasus in League that, given the game rolling out to become to that late round, they become really strong because they scale, but they're weak early in lane. And that's where I could see... I wish that's something that Siege experimented with more, to actually have operators that scale into the late round, because I think that's also a good way to sort of neuter things like TDM meta by actually adding scaling elements to the defensive side. I think that's something that was always really good with Lee Sin, Wamai, and Azami.
I agree. I don't trust Siege players.
Well, that comes down to the aspect, like, you know, the people that are gonna play these operators, like, and not play for actual scaling, they're gonna lose more, and that's how it should be, right? If you're not playing proper Siege, you should be losing. That's the way
I don't think of it that way.
No, but at the end of the day, they're losing and I'm winning, and that's really what matters then.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at, and you know, I'm turning 27 here pretty soon.
I actually want to mention a little bit of that aspect too. I talk well. Actually, I'm going completely off topic now. I hope you're okay with that.
Okay.
I realized this talking about it yesterday on stream, but Fenrir, right? It's not necessarily bringing something super new to the table, right? Gadget wise, right? It kind of has like similar aspects of like Melusi or Ella in them, right? However, what I really hope that Ubisoft explores with more on both like new characters, but also potential rework stuff, is this whole clacker mechanic with Fenrir.
Clacker.
Well, the fact that you can put stuff up and you can choose when to detonate which.
Yes.
Like, just hypothetically, I'm not saying that they should do this, but let's use Goyo as an example. What if Goyo could put down his canisters and then choose, okay, that one goes up, that one goes up. Or, we can use this for other aspects of, like for attackers. You could put down multiple breach charges, and you could choose when to detonate each breach charge.
Well, that's something. So Ram, you could kind of set that up in a way. There were some instances where I think you could have the boogie set up. You go around, you go for the hit, then you go click.
You couldn't set multiple
when you go for the hit somewhere else.
But yes, yeah. And that was a cool aspect you could do back in the day with Thermite when he had breaching charges. You could put down one exothermic charge and one breach charge, and you can detonate them both at the same time, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, I'm not saying that they should do the things that I mentioned, but I really, really hope that Ubisoft experiments with that mechanic, because the clacker mechanic of Fenrir is a mechanic that could add so much more depth and so much more coolness factor to many aspects of Siege, whether it's breaching charges or fuse or Goyo or smoke. Like smoke could put up multiple gas canisters, and oh man, there's something very, very cool here, and I'm sad that I only really thought about it now at the very, very end of Dread Factor. But
I always thought like smoke. That was one of the cool things that I liked about his whole like fantasy thing, is that he's the guy hidden in the mist, right? He's got this whole like plan. He's 5 steps ahead of you, and then when you least expect it, he's gonna pop the canister, and then you don't know where he's from, and you can't see, and you're disoriented.
You can literally guess an entire room.
I tried to have that in like year 1, and then usually if you threw the smoke and just let it sit for a bit, then people would be like, "Why'd you do that? You wasted that smoke. You could have like popped that on the door, and then that would have done better." It's like, but it would have been cool if like he ran in and then went like, psst, and he's like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, man, you're overcomplicating it. I'm like, well, that's no fun.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of, there's a lot of moments similar to that in Siege where you have something that looks really cool in your head, and then you do it in game.
Yes.
And then it goes, oh, I'm playing a video game. I forgot.
Yeah.
It's not the movies.
Yeah. I hope it's something that they reuse. We've talked shit about, the Siege community, has talked shit about Ubisoft reusing mechanics and stuff on a lot of things, but I really hope that this whole clacker mechanic...
How many freaking characters are in the game?
Like, we're creeping up on 80 now. We're creeping up.
Really?
Yeah, we're creeping up on 80 now. I
Dude,
think we're like 72, 73, something like that.
What do people want? What do people want from Ubisoft? I don't get it.
I don't know, Jaeger ACOG. I don't know.
A new character every 3 months.
Yeah. But yeah,
I personally,
Clacker mechanic, expand on it.
Please.
It's cool. Really cool. I'm sorry that it took us entirety of Dread Factor to realize that part of Phoenix. We focused on the wrong thing. We focused on what the Dread Mine actually does, but that whole aspect of being able to set up things at your demand, that's so cool. Like we need to talk about this.
It's what separates him from other trap ops.
Yeah,
it's like his thing.
That's cool, and that mechanic can expand so many different characters, and you could do what you said with smoke, right? You could pre-place 3 smoke canisters, and suddenly the entirety of server on bank can get turned into a gas room. I'm
so tired of like. I'm so tired of new characters getting added, and then it's like, well, this character can do this thing. Why did we need to nerf this character like 6 years ago? And I'm just like, first of all, who still remembers that one? Second of all, like, because that happened, we can't add new stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of argument is that?
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
It's just like they added Fenrir, and then it's like, oh well, just power creep Legion like that, huh? When did that even happen? Like the whole like you can't see the mines through walls. That was like a while ago. Was it like year
people
5?
really forget that like balancing is it's like balancing it changes,
and he's a totally different character too. Like the comparison isn't valid.
Yeah, it's balancing is something that constantly changes, and in certain metas some things are going to be balanced, and in certain other metas it's not going to be balanced, and that's always going to change, and some operators are going to lose stuff.
Can you imagine Fenrir 2020
gain it again? What?
Can you imagine Fenrir in the utility meta like 2020?
Well, no, because technically he wouldn't really have contributed to that kind of setup that much, because he doesn't have a shield or projectile denial. But
bulletproof, I don't know. Like,
did we have bulletproof cams in utility jump? We did, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. We got them in Shadow.
Yeah, because it was Neon Dawn. No, when did we have bulletproof cameras?
I don't remember.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Aruni.
She got one.
Because Aruni has had bulletproof like forever, right?
It might have came with Neon Dawn, or it might have.
I think so.
Been in Shadow Legacy right before it, like 0 season.
Yeah, it wasn't like 5 million years ago, but it was like recent enough, I think.
Yeah.
Because some people forget that you can even EMP blast with the cam.
I think that
was added later.
Yeah.
Much later.
I don't know. That aspect is cool, but I feel like.
But to your point, like things like the game changes, it's constantly evolving, and like you can say that that's like live service game. Cool.
Well, I mean, it is.
This is what we have.
At the end of the day, it is a live service, and what worked 5 years ago might not work now, and what didn't work 5 years ago might work now. That's just the way it goes, and same thing goes with maps. In some metas, Coastline was actually a pretty good map. In the current meta, it's fucking awful. But it hasn't changed, but everything around it has changed. That's just live service. Stuff changes. People figure things out. And Siege is one of those games where you just constantly discover things. And sometimes we're going to discover something that completely fucks over some old content. And that's
if it can happen in professional sports, like if something like it, and those are okay for the record, by the way, like in professional sports, rule changes don't really happen very much. Like the game that they played now is like pretty, in terms of the functionality of the design, is pretty similar to how it was like, decades ago. And then people discover new ways to do it regardless. Like that's going to happen in a game where it's constantly changing as well, like Siege.
I want to mention something on that note, because one thing that I absolutely despise is that when people bring up the argument of like, oh, why do you want balancing in a in a game like constantly? You know, why does a game have to be balanced? And they use the whole like, oh, chess has been around for 3,000 years and it's never received a single balancing change. Like, oh, the queen is too OP, nerf her. But at the end of the day, a new flow of content is something that
chess does not. Yeah.
No, but even listen, because even in chess, if you go and look at various chess streamers now, like sure they're still playing regular chess as well, but especially lately in the last 5 to 10 years, chess has been expanded on so many levels. There's so many different ways to play chess now. Like sure they use the basis of it, but they've done certain changes to it and certain different ways to play it and stuff, whether it's through time changes or literally there are like variations of chess now that has had balancing changes done to them because it's also, more fun, it's more content.
Chess also does not have as many
variables.
Yes.
It's very basic.
Thank you.
And same applies to CSGO.
That complicated.
Yeah. Simplicity can
same
be
reason
a
why
good
CSGO
thing.
is as popular as it is.
Yeah. Simplicity
like,
can
genuinely.
be a good thing.
Yeah.
But hey, at the end of the day, we love Siege for his advanced part.
I do too.
Yeah. It's nice to have
both. It wouldn't be what it is without it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't know, I would not have seen myself, like just hypothetically, if you put Siege in the same scenario of like a CSGO or chess, like let's say we only like 8 years in now still had the base game operators. Would I still be playing it? Probably not. I don't think so. Like maybe it would have had its offshoot, but I think in the current landscape of video games, the simple games are so established that you're never really gonna be able to dethrone.
It would have never broken through. No,
you kind of need to have this sort of constant flow of content now to actually make it in the current gaming landscape. Like you can't be, you're not gonna be the new chess. You're not gonna be the new CS:GO. You're just not.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
With their way of doing
Counter-Strike is
things.
Counter-Strike.
Yeah, like you're never gonna have a new simple game come out that's going to last, because any game that we've seen that has had like a very simple aspect and simple flow, real flow of content, falls off pretty early because people just haven't invested into it.
Counter-Strike invented the 5v5 plant the bomb to win tack shooter.
Yes.
Period. Like that is period to end. Like there was FPS gaming before Half-Life, and there was FPS gaming after Half-Life. Like there was pre-source and there was after source, and then everything after source, like it just completely changed the landscape. And I don't think enough people really like notice it or talk about it. It's like Doom and pre-Doom, right? Like it had a very similar kind of effect. You had like 2D generated like parallax effect kind of spaces where it was like you look left to right, like looking up and down was like a whoa, oh my gosh. Just looking up and down. Like that was a mechanic in like the 90s.
True.
And then the Half-Life comes out with all these like volumetric spaces and like physics, and it's like, what? Like if something explodes and then it makes that thing move like in real life? This was like in the 90s. And then it drops and it's like, oh wow, okay. And then when it came down to the gunplay, there's pretty much like nothing, we've like finalized a lot of the concepts that we've explored in terms of FPS game design. Like all of that started with CS, like crowd control, area denial, rotating, pinch, refrag, all these like core concepts like started there. So, we can't get mad about not being able to compete with that, because that was the cradle of FPS civilization.
Yeah, it's always so weird when people try to compare. You're trying to compare like the father of all games to one of the few grandsons that exist, and not just that. Like you're comparing a free to play to a premium title. It's not a good comparison. It never will be. But any other closing notes, Gregor?
To my point about keeping operators fun, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the shield rework stuff. As long as they get leverage and you can have impact without having a broken gameplay loop, that's always really good.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to look at it within the context of Siege. I'm curious to see what happens with this new shield, how much impact they're actually going to have. We haven't really had like a new entry frag, I guess, dedicated attacker in a long time. So I don't know if by year 9 we're going to explore a little bit more of that.
We are getting a new gun next season.
Yeah.
That's going to be hype.
Yeah, that's true.
On a Defender, actually.
I guess it might on a Defender, really.
Well, yeah, because the new operator is going to be a Defender. So, I would love to see a Defender sniper.
I do too. I've conceptualized that a couple of times in some different videos.
That would be
hype. But yeah, I'm excited. It's just a game, everyone.
Yes, it's only a game. Why you have?
It's only a game. I feel like we conclude on that a lot.
Yes,
for good reason. I guess.
It is. At the end of the day, it is a video game. The goal should be to have fun at the end of the day, whether you're having fun by ranking up or by fucking around. That's the goal. The goal is to have fun. Why bother? Yeah, Reggie got there. It's not fun.
All right.
Anyways, we're gonna sign off here. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 5 of the podcast. Let us know if there are any specifics y'all want us to talk about, because I mean, we'll see what happens once the season releases. But it's always good to know from you guys where your fields are, what you guys think we should talk about. Because
tell me all your problems.
Yeah,
Just
we're
kidding.
here. We're here for you. Anyways, bye-bye.
See ya.